Did you know that the last estimate puts the number of kangaroos living in Australia at over 33 million? It's a huge number, right? I didn't expect that many kangaroos to be around. The reason I picked kangaroos was because when we were discussing topic choices, animals kept coming up and they kept coming up. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do the first animal that comes to mind because it sounds like a fun challenge. And that animal was the kangaroo. So I'm credible on these kangaroos because I love animals. I wouldn't tell anybody false information about animals. And I also spent a lot of time researching it for this presentation. By learning more about kangaroos, you'll have a greater knowledge of this great marsupial that's native to Australia and how it impacts its habitat. First, let me talk to you about marsupials. Marsupials are animals that are like kangaroos, wallabies, koala bears. Marsupials, they're known by keeping their young in pouches. They're mostly in Australia, but there is a marsupial that lives in North America. Does anybody know what it is? Anybody want to take a guess? No? Okay, the possums. Possums are marsupials and they live here and all over the US. Okay, so I'm going to talk about habitat, family, and eating habits of kangaroos. Kangaroos are very social animals. They live in herds like that. A herd of kangaroos is also known as a mob or a troop. There are 5 different types of kangaroos, and the ones that are most commonly known are the gray kangaroos and the red kangaroos. They're larger than other ones. Kangaroos are herbivores. They usually eat leafy greens like this grass and so on. They live in large communities. Like you can tell it's a large number of kangaroos living in that herd right there. And of course, the thing that everybody knows about kangaroos is that they keep their babies in pouches. Alina Bradford, a journalist who has worked for Live Science for over 17 years, wrote that when baby kangaroos are born, they're joeys. They're only 0.2 to 0.9 inches long, which is about the size of a grain of rice when they're born. The joey gestates in the mother's womb for 21 to 38 days, which is 3 to 5 weeks, give or take. And then once the baby is born, it's only the size of a grain of rice, but it stays in the mother's pouch for almost a year in time, and it just stays in there. And the kangaroo's mammary glands are in the pouch, so the joey doesn't really have a reason to leave the pouch when it's young. It does everything in the pouch. For instance, it even urinates and defecates in that pouch, and then the mother cleans it up by like eating it. Now let's talk about hopping. Kangaroos are the only large animal to hop. They have very strong legs. R.M.N. Alexander wrote a scholarly article in the Journal of Zoology that states that kangaroos, with each hop, they exert 6 times their weight onto the ground. Kangaroos can jump up to 25 feet in a single bound, and they could jump, and they also jump 6 feet high is the highest that they've jumped, and they run 30 miles per hour. The kangaroo's powerful tail also can be used when they're jumping, to make sure that it propels them even further than they would before. Now, and if you look at the picture, I included a GIF of a hopping kangaroo. Relationships with humans. Now, this one isn't like as exciting as the picture leads on to believe. Kangaroos often leap in front of vehicles, and the headlights blind them. So there's a lot of car accidents in Australia because of kangaroos. And the cars, since kangaroos are such large animals, the cars actually do get a lot of damage to them. But because there's so many of these kangaroos that are getting injured, they have kangaroo crossing signs in Australia. Like we have deer crossing signs, or bear crossing signs, or mountain lion crossing signs. And Claire Atkinson wrote for DW magazine that the number of animal deaths that happen in Australia because of car crashes are 2.5 million per year, which equates to 7,000 animals dying each day in Australia because of they get hit by cars. Now that's not just kangaroos. 7,000 kangaroos aren't dying each day. It's all kinds of different animals that live in Australia, like the wombats and koala bears and stuff that I mentioned earlier. But that's okay, because there's a huge population of kangaroos anyway. Earlier I said there's over 33 million living in Australia. Another thing that, because the kangaroo population is so large, they're harvested for their pelts and their meat. Like, it's common in Australia to eat kangaroo meat. It's not common here in the US, obviously, but it is exported from Australia to the US at a high price. Now, just like to review what I went over, I first talked about the kangaroos' family habits and how they interact with each other, and the joeys with the pouches, and then I discussed how kangaroos hop and their relationship with humans. And to review my thesis, I said that by learning more about kangaroos, you'll have a greater knowledge of this Australian animal and how it impacts its environment. Kangaroos aren't endangered, but there are a lot of animals that are endangered, so everyone should just be mindful of how we can help our animals on Earth.